In this video, it's the head-to-head you didn't know you needed in your life. Berlingo versus Kangoo seems obvious enough, but we've got a Berlingo 1.6 petrol against a 1.5 turbo diesel Kangoo. So this should be quite interesting. This video is sponsored by Bidding Classics, the online marketplace. Check the description for details below. Buyers are not charged a fee, sellers are charged 5 or 10% depending on the level of service. So I'm looking forward to this comparison. Obviously I am a Berlingo owner myself, but I've never driven a Kangoo, so this is going to be a first time experience. And also never driven a 1.6 Berlingo, so that's going to be interesting as well. The Kangoo in question, it's a little beaten up. It's mostly used as a van by Full Grown Limited, who grow plants into furniture. They actually do that. Whereas the Berlingo belongs to Jono at Peak 2CV, so that explains why that's a bit of a mess. And look, he can't drive. It's funny. So we'll start with the Berlingo because this is the M59 Berlingo. This is the facelift version compared to the one I have, but it is a Desire. So it's got the fabled modu top, and compared to mine, it's very different inside. They completely redid the interior. They completely did the front structure because the M49 was so hideously unsafe in a crash, so that's obviously the one I've got. But yeah, being a Desire, it's quite well specced up. We've got this beautiful roof, and of course you've just got storage everywhere. So there's these CDs, Fleetwood Mac Tango in the Night, one of my favourite albums of all time. You've got this bit of nothing in particular, but some more storage up there, windows, you've got fans in the back as well, extra lighting, all the stuff my family really wanted, and I disappointed them. Different style of vents, different wiper stalks out of the next generation of Peugeot Citroen products, and an airbag steering wheel. Actually, I have an airbag, I've just remembered. 12 volt power outlet, no cigarette lighter anymore, and a glove box. Yeah, a tiny little thing compared to what we get in the earlier Berlingos. And they've also moved the bonnet release. The bonnet release on mine is on the driver's side. It's now on the passenger side, just to be irritating. But yeah, a much more modern style. Electric window switches here. Some of these would have had air conditioning as well, but this one's a bit blanking plugs ahoy. Typical triangle of doom wiper pattern. We'll get to that in a moment. But yeah, extra bonuses. Look, armrests. Really, really nice. I like that very much. So it does feel a lot more modern than mine, albeit very familiar. Hopping into the rear, exactly the same doors, exactly the same underfloor storage. Oh, you've mostly got water in there, Jono. Yeah. So apparently something leaks somewhere. But yeah, you also get all the storage here, of course. Is that meant to happen? You're always
breaking my cars.
I don't think that's meant to happen. We'll just put that back and pretend that never happened. But yeah, extra vents, extra glazing. It feels quite nice. I'm not even going to touch that one. That is going to fall off. But look, even got the picnic tables, which it's got picnic tables. No, we'll just leave them be. They're happy where they are. But 60-40 split rear seat, head restraints, third 3-point seat belt, and extra storage in the rear as well, which we'll get to imminently. What have I missed now?
No, I just want to have a look at this picnic table. That's for sure.
Oh, there you go. Beautiful. Yeah, have a look at your swimming pool. And central locking as well. And yeah, all the space. Ooh, little extra here. Oh, that's your storage for your modu trolley thing.
I've got that.
Ooh. Why isn't it in here?
Because it's in the office.
Oh, okay.
I've got some shoes in there, look, you'll love that.
That explains the smell. Lovely. So yeah, extra storage, extra everything, and a huge tailgate which keeps you dry when it's raining. Clonk. In the engine bay of the Berlingo we have a free leaf. Bye. And a tiny little engine with lots of space so you can see the ground. Oh, wow, look at this. You can get all round the back of it because there's not a turbocharger in it. Marvellous. So 1.6 petrol, 107 brake horsepower and an amount of torque. It's a very different engine bay to the diesel. And the reason I wanted to do this is, with the age these vehicles are getting to, the petrol's not necessarily a bad way to go. There's greater simplicity, and they're not too bad on fuel either. and they look a lot easier to work on. Moving on to the Kangoo, introduced in 1997, which was a year after the Berlingo van, but I think slightly ahead of the Berlingo Multispace estate car with seats and windows, and also based on a slightly smaller vehicle. It doesn't seem it when you're side by side with them, but the Kangoo is more Clio based, whereas the Berlingo is more based on the Citroen ZX platform. But we should go and jump in and see what it's like inside, because I've never even so much as sat in one of these before. And unsurprisingly, it feels quite a lot like a Renault Clio in here. It feels a little more compact, but still a daft amount of headroom. We've got some overhead storage here, an extra mirror. Oh, that's for keeping an eye on the kids, is it? So you've got one for looking at the rear window and another one just for keeping an eye on those pesky kids. That's a nice feature. Grab handle there to get in. We've got a dashboard collection of things. That's quite cool. I like that. A little 5-speed gearbox. So this has got the 1.5 DCI engine used extensively in Renaults and Nissans, also used in the Qashqai, I believe, with slightly more power. I think this is all of 86 powers. Height adjustable seat belts. And oh yeah, we even get an armrest here as well. So the French are really rather good at these comfortable van-like vehicles. The French have always loved a simple estate car based on a van. 2CVs were available in such formats, Renault 4s as well. And I can kind of see why. So it does feel a little cheap, the plastic in here, but at the same time I quite like it because this grey breaks things up a bit. It isn't just a sea of black plastic. And just try the little gear lever. Oh yeah, it's got nice action on it. So sliding door comparison. That feels slightly tighter. Is it just a simple pull? You don't have to release it to close it again. But jump in. Oh, bit of a firmer rear seat, I'm going to say. But again, acres and acres of space. We've got overhead cupboards. Again, that one seems to be slightly held shut. That one is accessible. So rather than directly overhead, we've just got it to the sides. Instead, we've also got picnic tables of a slightly different type, and that feels a little more substantial as well. Mat pockets, just like the Berlingo. So yeah, another nice place to sit. Good view over the driver, out of the windscreen, and lots of overhead space that you can't really do anything with. Right, opening the boot. Yeah, I'm not sure how much I trust those. I'll keep my head on it. Good useful space. And interior light in there, no load cover, and it is full of stuff because it is just in work mode at the moment. I noticed the rearmost windows don't open on this, whereas they do on a Berlingo. So if that sort of thing is important for you, you now know. Right, here we go in the Berlingo then. Yeah, that is not the noise I expect. Just did a windscreen wiper test. And yeah, there's our massive triangle of doom and noisy windscreen wipers as well. We may have to explore that. Brand new wiper blades have been fitted ahead of me arriving here. I've just noticed we've got separate buttons for the stereo. That's a bit fancy. So off we go. So as ever, I am absolutely indebted to the Ecclesbourne Valley Railway for letting us film in the car park today. Came and filmed the Xantia here not all that long ago. Yeah, fascinating railway, and fascinating buildings and things as well. Yeah, it's a very strange sensation driving a petrol Berlingo after doing so many miles on a diesel one. Oh, yeah, it's not quite so good at the pottering around on tickover as the diesels. But actually, even uphill, it feels quite punchy, which is a bit unexpected. You could also, earlier Berlingos, you could get a 1.4 petrol. That really was a bit meek. This feels like a sensible amount of power. The engine's still warming, so I'm not going to go crazy on it just yet. But yeah, very nice, direct steering. All the controls fall nicely to hand. The visibility is excellent because the glass area is enormous, and it does add to it, having the modu top. Just a bit more light in the cabin, which is very necessary when there's so much dark plastic in here. But yeah, it just handles well. You just turn in and it goes where you want it to go. Yet these Berlingos have a remarkable ride comfort, which I think most people don't expect. I do find it a little too toned down in here. The early Berlingos had a splash more colour about the interior, and I really like that. But yeah, I guess buyers are a bit more conservative, so they did tone things down a bit. Yeah, here we can open her up a bit more. It's quite boomy, but it actually sounds quite sporty. And you can make progress decently enough. That wasn't a 0 to 60, we were going uphill, and the engine's still warming, so I'm trying not to absolutely hoof it. There's snow still on the roads up here. But yeah, this is quite an uneven road. I just drove down this road in a Land Rover Discovery Sport, and I must say, sorry Land Rover, this rides so much better. Yeah, there's a fair bit of road noise, and that's also true of my diesel as well. The rear arches, there is no sound deadening on them at all. It is, you know, it is a basic vehicle. They were always fairly basic. We've discovered they were about £4 cheaper than the equivalent Zara Picasso, for instance. So they were designed to be a little more utilitarian, and that means they aren't necessarily the quietest vehicle. Let's give it the beans up this hill. Yeah, that is my foot down. Yeah, that's a different driving experience to the diesel. There's no power low down, it's all at the top. So you've got to keep it on the boil to keep your speed up. Whereas the HDI, you keep the revs low at all times. There's not really any point going above 2,500 revs. This, you're kind of forced to get any meaningful progress out of it. But it sounds quite pleasant. So that's not necessarily a problem. Just a very different way of driving. Oh yeah, there's not much torque at all low down. So you really do have to rev it, which is quite good fun around here, I must admit. But I imagine that can get tiring on a longer journey. It's probably why Jono has a Xantia HDI as well. Much better for that sort of thing. But as a sort of a first Berlingo ownership experience, the petrols might actually be better because they are that more simple than the turbo diesels. The turbo diesels are running high pressure pumps, and they can have injector woes, EGR woes, all that sort of stuff. I think the petrols are just a bit more simple, and not necessarily at the cost of economy. I imagine this would still do 40 mpg if you were gentle with it. But where's the fun in that? It's weird, that's not the soundtrack you expect of a van. So that was the Berlingo, a surprisingly entertaining package. How does the Kangoo compare? Unexpectedly, a Vauxhall Senator. There are some quality vehicles here on the railway. Let's do a windscreen wash. And, oh, that's pleasing. I didn't realise this. I thought Kangoos had a triangle of doom. They don't. There's just enough overlap to avoid it. That's impressive stuff. A little bit gappy over there. You might be able to adjust your way out of that. But yeah, here we go. 1.5 turbo diesel. Put some lights on just because it's a bit gloomy today. And obviously it feels a bit more agricultural than the 1.6 petrol Berlingo. 86 brake horsepower. So still a reasonable turn of pace, one hopes. Love the steering noises. No idea what's going on there. Yeah, a little bit low, lacking in low down dirty torque compared to the diesel Berlingos. The turbo diesel Berlingos have an extra 500cc to play with though. A few more trim rattles and clatters going on in the back, but I've no idea what's in any of those storage cupboards. But ride so far feels pretty good. See how the handling compares. Yeah, seems to steer nicely. It's a much more turbo diesel-esque. You have to mash the pedal and just wait for that boost to kick in. It's not a particularly delicious sounding engine, but nonetheless it does drive nicely, and like all the best turbo diesels, you can make progress without having to really try too hard. Oh yeah, that feels pretty decent. I mean, it's worth pointing out, this example's got 151,000 miles on the clock. It's not in the first flush of youth. Also, the mirror is slightly irritating, the interior mirror. It doesn't make good use of the enormity of the rear window. Yeah, brakes feel nice and positive. It's a pleasant vehicle to drive, I think. It does feel notably smaller in here though. The cabin feels a little narrower than the Berlingo. Oh yeah, the brakes are super positive actually. I'm having trouble modulating their effectiveness. So a very different driving experience to that petrol Berlingo, because it's all about low down grunt. So you're not having to rev it, and revving is fun, but not if you've got lots of miles to do. It can get very tiring. Now the Kangoo is supposedly the best selling small van in Europe. Renault claims to have sold 1.6 million of these, and again, it's easy to see why. It's got that utilitarian feel that means it is a supremely practical vehicle. You can get a wide range of engines in these, much wider than the Berlingo, but you could go as small as a 1 litre petrol, which must be thoroughly miserable. But yeah, just like the Berlingo, nice big door mirrors, electrically controlled on this example. Got electric front windows as well. The rears are just pop-outs, but they're surprisingly comfortable for what is a van. I think there's an expectation they'll be a bit rough and ready, and they just aren't really. They're actually quite jolly to drive. Right, let's go and test it up our test hill. Yeah, good turning circle. Maybe slightly better than the Berlingo. Oh yeah, you don't want to rev it, it doesn't sound nice at all. Yeah, I'd say the ride is a little more rubbery than the Berlingo. Just a little bit firmer. It hasn't quite got the composure of the Berlingo. But yeah, still goes very well. Still, again, a bit more road noise than you might be used to in a passenger car. I mean, these big boxy shapes, the sound can really bounce around. But yeah, still makes plenty of progress, even going uphill. Yeah, I can definitely see what the appeal of these is. Just, I don't like that engine noise. I far prefer the Peugeot Citroen HDI engine. That is a beauty of a lump. Yeah, I'm going to say this isn't quite as exciting to drive as the petrol Berlingo. But compared to the HDI Berlingo, this definitely wants to rev a bit more, which I guess it needs to, because it's got that slight loss of capacity by comparison. But yeah, the French are so good at making even vans ride and handle well. After all, the Renault Clio that this is based on is one of the better hatchbacks out there. Well, that's been a really interesting comparison. My first time driving a Kangoo, and there's a lot to like there. Even a slightly tired 1.5 diesel, it's actually got a nice amount of get up and go, and feels just as good in the ride and handling department as a Berlingo. So yeah, very likeable indeed. I'm glad to have finally tried one. So thank you very much to the owner of this one. Thank you to Jono at Peak 2CV for letting me drive his Berlingo as a point of comparison, and I look forward to seeing you in a future video. Farewell. Oh, I see. It's actually duck storage. He looks very, very happy in there. I forgot to do a rear wiper test in the Berlingo. That's interesting, because I'm operating the rear washer and it's operating on the front, which is a fine reminder that the Kangoo is definitely French.